Hello and welcome. It's another edition of the 30-minute pitch here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. I am your host, Austin Robillard. We have our producer, Manny, on the backside. I believe this is our fifth episode. We're already 5 weeks into this amazing show, this amazing start where we bring you 30 minutes of football/soccer content every single week, every single Thursday at 10 a.m. Thanks so much for tuning in. Can't wait to get the show started today. But first, it is Veterans Day. I wanted to send a thank you to all the veterans out there who are serving and have served to fight for our freedom. Your service definitely does not go unnoticed, and we should be thanking them every single day. So thank you so much for that. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. And also, this show is not possible. The 30-minute pitch is not possible without Dangerous Minds Brewing Company. I can't stress this enough. It's one of my favorite places right now, and it has been for a while. Right located at the Pompano Beach City Center here in North Broward area. It's amazing brewing company, has amazing beer, amazing pizza. We just hosted a watch party not too long ago where the Heat beat the Dallas Mavericks. With 5 Reasons Sports, of course, and that was an awesome time. And they also have events happening, not just watch parties with 5 Reasons, but they've got events going on almost nonstop. I believe this Sunday, they're hosting a kids DIY pizza event, only $12. You get a pizza, you get toppings, they get a souvenir apron. Seems like a really good time. Make sure you call them at 954-657-8676 to inquire and to make an RSVP. I know that they've just announced a special edition release for their anniversary coming up on the 20th. And if you check out their Instagram or Twitter at Dangerous Minds Brewing, you will see all of the events that they post and all of the different types of events they post. Now, I mentioned the kids DIY. They also have certain pizza specials. They have food specials. They have pairings with beer and cheese, and all of these kinds of things going on all the time. So make sure you check out Dangerous Minds Brewing Company. I promise you won't be disappointed. And I also, I give them all of my thanks for helping make this show possible. Now, speaking of this show, let's get right into it. We have 30 minutes to discuss some of the biggest topics right now going on in world and local football. And I wanted to start off with, Manny knows it, my pride and joy, the U.S. men's national team. It's the international break. It's that time for more World Cup qualifiers. It feels like just recently we were talking about this, and it's true. Just about a month ago, we were all talking about this, and there were qualifiers going on. And as much as it is a pain to see your clubs have to leave for the international break, this is an important one. Obviously, with the World Cup coming up in 2022, this is a time where world competition is extremely important. And I need to get into this because finally, the United States are taking on Mexico in the octagonal. It used to be the hex, now it's the oct. So we're more and more CONCACAF teams getting a chance to qualify for the World Cup is extremely important, but it puts a little bit more of a strain on my back because I have to worry about the U.S. men's national team. But speaking of the U.S. men's national team, I want to talk about what this roster is and what Greg Berhalter has brought in, and a couple of my issues with it. Now, they're taking on Mexico. We knew we were taking on Mexico. It's the toughest team in the group. It's a team that you're fighting at the top of the group with at the moment. It's a time where dropping points is really not something you can do. Now, I'm looking at the table here. Mexico's in first place with 14 points, 4 wins and 2 draws. The United States took a loss. They've got 11 points. Canada and Panama sit in third and fourth with 10 and 8 points, respectively. And then behind that, it's Costa Rica, Jamaica, El Salvador, Honduras. The United States cannot fall into that fourth place spot because then you have to go to a qualifying round with other countries around the world to try and get into the World Cup. You need to finish top 3. I think that there is more than enough talent, and I actually know there's more than enough talent to do that. But you still have to play Mexico a couple more times, and that's where it gets interesting for me. Topping the group would be really, really, really good, but recently in past results, the United States has gotten a couple of good ones other than the Panama result where they lost 1-0. But they started off a little shaky with the 0-0 draw to El Salvador away in El Salvador. Then they had the 1-1 draw against Canada, a couple of big wins against Honduras and Jamaica. They just are coming off a win against Costa Rica, but in there was that loss to Panama. And I think that right now is in a really, really important time for a lot of these young guys who did get called up to prove themselves to try and be on the roster come November, December of 2022. So let's start with the goalkeepers. Now, Sean Johnson got called up, which good for him, but we know, or any men's national team fan knows, the battle is between Zach Steffen and Matt Turner. And both of them are kind of on a high right now. I mean, if you're looking at Zach Steffen, I say he's on a high not because of playing time, but because Manchester City just extended him for a couple more seasons. They want him as the backup goalkeeper, and that's not light. That's not a light thing to say. To be a backup goalkeeper at Manchester City, a team that's doing their best to become a European giant. Obviously, they have not gotten the coveted European trophy, but you know how much they battle in the Premier League from year to year under Pep Guardiola. It just seems like they're always relevant and they're always there. And to be the backup goalkeeper for that team is huge for a men's national team guy. Of course, a lot of what goalkeeping has to do with is repetition, is minutes. But there's no underestimating what that first team training at Manchester City could do for a young goalkeeper like like Zach Steffen. Now, moving on to Matt Turner, who right now I believe has been riding the high horse. He has all of the momentum. Matt Turner, the goalkeeper for the New England Revolution, they just set the best record in MLS history, the most points ever scored in an MLS regular season. They're getting ready to start the playoffs. Matt Turner, man, he's the number one goalkeeper for me, and I wasn't saying that, a week or two. No, I was probably saying it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, but a couple months ago, I probably in the summertime, a little before the summer, I wasn't really saying that. But I think he's proven himself to be the best goalkeeper that the United States could offer. And there's just been times where Zach Steffen has done a couple of shaky things. His distribution's not always there. But with Matt Turner, his goal saving ability is phenomenal. He's got an incredible backstory. If you've never seen it, go check it out. I think that Matt Turner deserves to continue to start for the U.S. men's national team until proven otherwise. And I kind of expect him to be the starter come 2022 World Cup time. And that may not be a delight for some people who are not big on MLS or want to use the European talent, but with goalkeepers it's a little bit different. And I think that with Matt Turner getting all these reps compared to Zach Steffen, I don't think there's any other goalkeeper besides those two who are really going to challenge. You got to give it to the guy who's been playing the most minutes at all times, and that's Matt Turner. Plus he's done some incredible things. Now, moving on to the defense is where I saw one omission that I was not too happy with. And then obviously there's the injury to Serginho Dest, so he won't be there. But there's no John Brooks on this roster. And for me, John Brooks is probably, the number one center back in this pool, in this entire men's national team pool. And for the last couple of months, looking at the summer tournaments and things like that, it was who's going to be paired next to John Brooks come 2022. And now, without him being called up after, a somewhat decent start to this season with Wolfsburg, maybe it was due to protection, coming off injury, whatever. I'm not really sure. But I'm curious to see why he wasn't called up, or I would be curious to know why he wasn't called up. However, it does give us a look at some of these young center backs who still have to prove themselves going into 2022. Now, do I think playing against Mexico in a World Cup qualifier is the chance to prove yourself? Absolutely. Does it make me nervous? Again, absolutely, because we know how tight the octagonal in CONCACAF is going to be. But there's guys on here who have proven themselves to be really quality defenders, not only with the men's national team, but also with their clubs. And a couple of guys I'm looking at, Mark Mckenzie. He's had time in the summer. He played in a couple of those tournaments, and he plays for Gent in Belgium. I don't think he's had the best season you could have asked for in Belgium. I don't know how many minutes he's getting, but it's a guy that's still getting European minutes, which I alluded to with the goalkeepers. Chris Richards for Hoffenheim was with Bayern on loan, or was on Bayern, was loaned out to Hoffenheim. He's with Hoffenheim now into this 2021 season. And Chris Richards is a guy that I'm looking at that I'm kind of hoping starts in this Mexico match, but we're going to have to see. Miles Robinson, of course, is a guy for Atlanta United. He's been one of their key pieces in MLS. He scored that winning goal in the Gold Cup final. He's put in a lot of quality performances for the men's national team and for Atlanta United. I am 99% sure he's probably going to get the start come tomorrow night. And then the last center back on this roster is Walker Zimmerman, who has also had a pretty good season with Nashville. Didn't concede a lot of goals this year. Nashville, they were a team that were really tough to beat, and I think that he's a guy that's probably on the bottom of the depth chart compared to a lot of them, at least in my mind. Maybe not in Greg Berhalter's mind, but when I look at the likes of Mark Mckenzie, Chris Richards, Miles Robinson, and Zimmerman, I'm kind of ranking them as Miles Robinson number one, Richards number two, and then I would have a tough battle between Mark Mckenzie and Zimmerman for 3 and 4. And that's without John Brooks being there. I think that John Brooks is still somebody that is the number one center back due to, not only how much of a veteran he is for the men's national team, but he is a quality player. There's a reason he's been there. So I was curious to see why he was omitted, but we may never know that answer. Now, looking at the wing backs, like I mentioned, Serginho Dest is injured, right? That gives you a little bit of a hole at the right back position. However, DeAndre Yedlin was called up. It seems to me like this is probably the time to give DeAndre Yedlin some minutes, especially against Mexico. He's been in these matchups before, but for the first ever time, Greg Berhalter has called up the Borussia Mönchengladbach right back / right wing back / right midfielder, Joe Scally. Joe Scally was part of that 5-0 defeat or 5-0 win over Bayern Munich not too long ago. He was playing as a right midfielder or a right wing back in a 3 center back formation. Most of the time, that's what Borussia Mönchengladbach plays, but they have played a couple 4 at the backs where he just played as an out-and-out right back. It would be really good to see Joe Scally get minutes because I think that this guy is a lot more quality than he's been getting credit for, especially from Greg Berhalter. I believe he deserved a call-up even before this November one. And I don't think that Mexico's the game to do it. I don't. I think that you need to play a guy like DeAndre Yedlin in this Mexico game just due to the fact that it's Mexico, it's a Friday night, and it's going to be an insane atmosphere and a matchup that is storied, rivaled throughout a long period of time. However, I do want to see Joe Scally get minutes at some point. And on to the left side, I'm kind of looking at the battle between Anthony Robinson, who has been a starter for not a long time, but throughout these last couple of months with the men's national team, but also Sam Vines. Sam Vines got called up, and the last time I believe we saw Sam Vines on the men's national team roster was for a couple friendlies, maybe in the beginning of the year. And now with his move to Royal Antwerp in Belgium, he's playing well. He's getting a lot of minutes. He's getting European football, not only in Belgium, but also in, the European leagues, the Conference League, the Europa League, whichever one Antwerp's in. I can't even really remember at this point. But Sam Vines is a left back option that I think that, they really need to look for. Moving on to the midfield, this is the key for me. The midfield, other than, the number 9, who is it going to be? The midfield is key for me because there are some of our biggest players are on the midfield and some of our weakest players are in the midfield. It is quite a drop off, if you ask me, and that's because of Greg Berhalter's choosing, but it is what it is. So basically, the people that I'm alluding to in terms of the drop off: Kellen Acosta, Sebastian Lletget, Christian Roldan, but we knew they were going to be there. It's almost inevitable at this point, but that these guys are going to be in men's national team camps, and Berhalter's always going to have that. I believe that it's honestly hurting a lot of young players that have not gotten as many minutes as they would have liked. One that I'm looking at right now is Luca De La Torre, who's playing really well in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. And I'm sure that he's upset that he did not get a call-up. He just got one in October. I believe he deserved another one. He's still playing really good for that Hercules side. But then again, he's going to be competing with the likes of Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, and even now Gianluca Busio, who's playing really well for Venezia, who looks like a club that actually might stay up in Serie A, which is not something that I expected. So those 4 midfielders right there with Adams, with McKennie, with Musa, and Busio. I think the 3 that you pick if you're Greg Berhalter in a 4-3-3 formation is obviously McKennie, is obviously Adams as the 6, and then you probably go with Musa. But however, I think that Busio could potentially get a start. However, he's more of um, that 6 type, like Tyler Adams. Maybe not as defensive, but more as a pinpoint guy, kind of in the midfield, Jorginho-esque, to try and pick out passes and things like that. And I think that that's where he could really shine. I think he does have a goal for Venezia this year, but it'll be good to see him get minutes, and hopefully he gets minutes over the likes of Sebastian Lletget and Kellen Acosta. Now, moving on to the forwards, the big omission, or a couple of big omissions there. No Giovanni Reyna because of injury. Conrad de la Fuente did not get called up. But the really important piece is that Pulisic is back. I think that Berhalter is definitely going to monitor his minutes. However, in a game against Mexico, if you're down 1-0 or it's 1-1 in the 60th minute and you're fighting for a win and you didn't start Christian, he's going to get subbed on. He's going to play these tough last 30 minutes if you get to that point. Speaking of 30 minutes, it's a 30-minute pitch. There's a little connection there. But yeah, with Pulisic back, it's a huge, huge help. I think that's key. It's really good to see him get back from injury. He did get some minutes for Chelsea coming back from injury, and a lot of people were applauding him, and they were happy to see him back. This guy is one of the most technical, skillful dribblers, even in the Premier League. I mean, what Christian Pulisic can bring. He's the heart and soul of this national team as well right now. But I don't expect him to get the start. I kind of expect the front three to look like Ricardo Pepi as the number 9, maybe Brendan Aronson out on the wing along with Weah on the opposite wing. It would be probably Aronson on the left, and then Weah out on the right. A lot of time for Salzburg, Brendan Aronson has been playing as a number 10, playing as a creative guy. So if he does get listed out as a left winger, expect him to drift in and get some time under Ricardo Pepi to try and create chances. However, that does leave a little bit of a hole, which I would be afraid of on that left side because Anthony Robinson is there. And he is not the best defensive wing back that you could possibly ask for. Anthony Robinson provides a lot of quality. However, defensively, there are a little bit of questions to be asked of him. So that is a bit of a concern for me, especially because of Mexico's wingers, Tecatito Corona and Irving Lozano. So that's a question that's going to have to be answered. I know I said the midfield battle is probably the key for me in terms of not just this matchup against Mexico, but in, the U.S. men's national team entirety. It's so if those two guys, McKennie and Adams, can be solid and consistent for a long period of time, it's going to bring this men's national team to success. However, when you're going against quality like Mexico and those kinds of wingers, you have to be defensive. You have to be solid in the back. And Anthony Robinson, Serginho Dest, Joe Scally. I'm looking at a couple of these guys, even Sam Vines. I'm looking at a couple of these guys, and I have to question their defensive qualities. I have to question that. I know what Serginho Dest can do as a right back. I know what he can do going forward. I know what he can do, with Barcelona when he's playing as a right winger. I know he can score a banger from time to time if he needs to. But if he's to be listed as a right back in an upcoming camp, we need to see some defensive performances because you can't isolate these young center backs. You cannot isolate these young center backs, or I think they'll be done and dusted. Anthony Robinson and whoever plays on that right side, it's probably going to be DeAndre Yedlin, has a lot of work cut out for them in this Mexico matchup. Then they're going to go on and play Jamaica a couple days after that. This window for the men's national team is important. Jamaica, they're climbing up the table a little bit. They started off really, really, really poorly. But that's a matchup that Jamaica has a lot of ability, a lot of pace to beat you off the counter. And if they do decide to bunker in against a team like the men's national, the U.S., they're going to have to be careful of those kinds of things. And that's another time where defensive qualities are going to have to be shown. But especially in this Mexico game, I'm expecting, I don't know if I think Funes Mori or Jimenez is going to start. I would assume Tata Martino wants to go with Jimenez, bring him back into the starting lineup for Mexico. But That's another, quality attacker to look out for. If Jimenez is up top and Tecatito and Lozano are coming up and down the wings, you've got a couple of really good quality midfielders and behind them, especially some veteran ones too for Mexico. It's going to be a matchup that's going to get really tough, and they were really tough. If you remember that Nations League final, went into extra time 3-2, came down to an Ethan Horvath penalty save. There's a lot of quality in both of these teams. There's a lot of history and rivalry in these teams, but it should be a fantastic matchup on Friday night. I believe it's at TQL Stadium, the new TQL Stadium in Cincinnati. So that's quite the venue. Inter Miami, that is, have had the chance to play there twice, I believe, this season, and or maybe it was just once, but yeah, it's quite the venue. It's a new venue. You would hope that a World Cup qualifier between the United States and Mexico is played in a city like Columbus at their new stadium, given all the history that was there. But no, it's right across the way at Cincinnati, and it's something to look out for on Friday night. Now, there's a couple other qualifiers going on in a couple of hours. I believe about 4.5, 5.5, 6 hours. My other nation, Ecuador, take on Venezuela in a very important matchup for them. They're going against the lower side in South America right now. They're sitting in third place. Excuse me. They need to try and solidify themselves if they want to make the World Cup and not drop all the way down. Only 1 point separates third and fifth place. Ecuador, Colombia, and Uruguay are fighting. In sixth place you have Chile, but if you do make that fifth place, it's more of like the fourth place team in CONCACAF, where you will get a spot in a qualification process down the line to still have a chance to qualify for the World Cup. So Ecuador against Venezuela need to solidify themselves tonight. There's another key matchup with Colombia, that fourth place team right behind Ecuador. They're taking on group leaders Brazil. Now, mind you, Brazil and Argentina are at the top of this group by some way, and they also have games in hand because of that one crazy mix up with the coronavirus stuff and the Brazilian health officials running onto the field a couple weeks ago. But that's a big match as well. Brazil, Colombia at 7:30. Manny, you're on the other side. I think Peru play Bolivia later tonight. Peru down there on the table. Probably not the greatest chance for them to qualify, but if they can pick up points against Bolivia, it'll at least knock them up a spot and maybe have a chance to fight for fifth place. So that's the state of our two countries. I'm going to give you a little shoulder nudge there and say Ecuador is doing a little better right now. I can't lie, but it's going pretty well, nonetheless. Now, Venezuela, Inter Miami, Christian Macoun. If this guy doesn't get minutes, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to be extremely disappointed if Christian Macoun doesn't get minutes for Venezuela tonight against Ecuador. Now, I know it's against Ecuador, and that'll be upsetting. Maybe he doesn't play against Ecuador and goes against their next opponent, which would be really nice. However, I just want him to get minutes nonetheless. He didn't get minutes the last time he was called up. He's deserved to call up, absolutely. He's been just such a key part for this Inter Miami side down the stretch, who have now obviously ended their season. But going forward, this guy's a starting center back in MLS, and I think that that's enough quality to start you for Venezuela. And I think that the low block that they play, I know Venezuela switches it up from time to time, but they usually play a low block against more quality sides, like a 5-4-1. And Macoun, we have seen him in that left center back role in a 3 at the back be really quality, especially for Inter Miami against paired with two other good center backs. So that's another thing that I'm looking out for. Now, that kind of puts me into my next topic, because a little bit of Inter Miami also has to do with this Aston Villa coaching change. Now, before I get to that one, Manny and I talked about it about 2 weeks ago. Xavi potentially being the manager after Ronald Koeman got fired, and that's now happened. His Qatari club announced it first, and now he's with FC Barcelona. I don't know if he's had his first game yet, and if he does, I'm sure it'll be after the international break, but Xavi is there. Maybe, potentially, you see this tiki-taka style of football come back to Barcelona? Do they have enough quality to do that? That's just the question that's going to be answered here throughout the course of the season for Xavi. But honestly, I wish him the best of luck. He's a club legend. I know what it feels like to have a club legend at the wheel. Yes, that is a nod at Ole. However, I know how poorly that also can go. And I hope the best for Xavi. They are dealing with quite the situation of FC Barcelona, and this was, for me, this was something to try and like win back the fans and regain trust and things like that. And I fully understand it from a club standpoint. However, uh, for it being the best decision for FC Barcelona, I'm not too sure, but there's also not many other options after Conte was snatched up. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how that goes. Now, the other coaching change that I'm alluding to with Aston Villa, Dean Smith was fired following their loss to Southampton over in England. Now we're going across the world here from North America to South America, and now we're in Spain and now England. Um, Listen, the Dean Smith firing was almost inevitable. I think, we're on 5 losses in a row. Um, and now they've just signed or brought in Steven Gerrard. He was coaching at Rangers for a really long time, brought them to quite some glory, might I add. Steven Gerrard was doing a phenomenal job with the Scottish side, getting them into European football, winning the Premiership in Scotland. And now he's taking on a challenge with Aston Villa where it's going to be quite the task. However, he does have a lot of quality in this Aston Villa side. I will say the reason I think Dean Smith was sacked was because they probably expect to produce a little bit more quality on the field, to get a little bit more results than they would have asked for, especially after a big summer transfer window, bringing in the likes of, I believe, Leon Bailey and things like that, and also Danny Ings as well. And Buendia, I think, is another one. So there's been a lot of criticism revolving around the club after Jack Grealish left, and he had basically almost fought by himself to keep Aston Villa up a couple of years ago, if you remember that, with Dean Smith. After Jack Grealish left, they have not been able to get on track, and with Steven Gerrard there, that's the kind of man that they're hoping to do the job. I know Rangers fans are probably pissed off. I have not seen any backlash just yet, but I'm sure if I do one quick Twitter search, I'm sure Rangers fans are quite upset with Steven Gerrard. But it's a job that he was ultimately always going to take. Honestly, if he can get himself back into the Premier League, I'm sure that was the goal when he was coaching at Rangers. It's another situation. I look at Wayne Rooney, who has not had a ton of success with Derby County, and they got penalized really badly at the beginning of this season. Probably if they get relegated, that would really suck. But Wayne Rooney is another guy who took that coaching route at following their career, playing for a lower division UK side. Well, I guess, Scotland, they're playing in the first division, but lower division in terms of the Premier League and quality. And now Steven Gerrard, with the success he's had, has built his way up to coach Aston Villa. And I think that it probably is going to end up being a good thing. It could take some time, but I think that they'll be patient with him. If he gets a decent, January window and the board backs him to bring in a signing of his own, that would be good. Give him the summer, see what he wants to do with the squad he has. But like I said, there's a lot of quality in that Aston Villa side, and that can't go unsaid because they should be producing more. Dean Smith probably should have gotten a couple more results than he did, and that losing skid was abysmal, to say the least. So let's see what Steven Gerrard could do. Now, what this means in the last minute that we have here, what this means for Inter Miami. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you remember, Indiana Vassilev came on loan from Aston Villa in the summertime, and he was one of those midseason signings. And this can impact him one of two ways. Now, I'm not sure why Indiana Vassilev left Aston Villa in the first place. I don't know if it was because of, his play time there or whatever it was. He was playing a lot for the academy side. He got sent out on loan to a League Two team and a League One team, was getting some minutes, but not a ton, had not scored a goal in the England top flights. He gets sent over to MLS, gets about 800 minutes, about 200 more than he's ever gotten with any other side that he's played for other than the academy teams. And Dean Smith was the manager there. I'm not saying anything about that. However, with a coaching change, you have to think about what it does for a player's mentality. Does Indiana Vassilev want to go back? Does he have a heart here in Miami? Does he want to stay? It's a question to be answered. It's a question that we'll see probably soon. I'm expecting a lot of club announcements in a couple of days from Inter Miami in terms of, roster moves they're having to make, whether it's declining contract options or not re-signing players. Um, After the end of their contract. That's something that's going to hopefully be answered in that initial release from Inter Miami and MLS. But with Indiana Vassilev, it's a situation where I say I want Indy Vassilev to stay. I think that he could be a really good winger. In MLS, like I said, he only got 800 minutes this year, but he did end up scoring 3 goals, a lot more than he's ever scored in any other top flight program. And I think that, as a 20-year-old winger, maybe MLS, is not the most ideal place to start. However, he's found some success here, and it's not, not a ton, obviously, and he'll be able to probably play a lot more than he thinks. I think that after the decline of Robbie Robinson this season as a winger, Lewis Morgan may want to shift out to the left wing or the right wing, whichever, and then Vassilev could pair with him on the opposite side, playing next to Higuain, of course. I think that Vassilev is in for a ton of minutes if he is to stay. I think that he is rated highly by the club, and I think that they are right in rating him highly. I think he's got a lot of quality, and if you know me, I like Indiana Vassilev. I think that he could be successful here. However, you don't rid him of the opportunity to go back to a Premier League side. If he wants to go back and he doesn't want to sign a full-time deal here, you don't rid him of that opportunity. You don't fight as much. I think that it fully comes up to the player. And another aspect to look at, it's also up to Steven Gerrard now. Steven Gerrard has to look at his roster. He has to look at his depth chart and say, all right, do I want this guy back from loan? Let's see what he did in MLS. Can he be can he be an asset to my side? Probably not right away, but again, I just mentioned his age. Indiana Vassilev is 20 years old. He's come up through the ranks, and I think that, given time to develop and given a good, process, I think Vassilev could be a quality winger in a ton of different leagues, and MLS being one. Premier League might be a little bit of a stretch. However, I think he's got the technical ability to do so. It's just maturing his footballing side. So it's not only up to Indy Vassilev, it's up to Steven Gerrard as well. And if Steven Gerrard wants him back and Indiana Vassilev wants to go back, you let him have the opportunity. However, if Vassilev wants to go back and Gerrard says, no, we don't want him, Miami needs to do everything in their power to give this guy money to stay here. Now, I'm not saying give him DP money or TAM money, that no allocation money or DP money should be spent. However, if you offer this guy, I mean, let's say, I'm not sure, like 250, 300K a year, you're going to get rid of some guys off the books, right? You're going to get you're hoping to do that anyway. And I think that Miami are going to open a lot of roster spots in the coming days, and Vassilev should be one of those guys to occupy that spot if possible. So for me, if I'm Chris Henderson, if I'm Phil Neville, and there's a chance to keep Indiana Vassilev without, fully ridding him of an opportunity to do what he wants to do, you absolutely take that chance, given some major changes that may happen within the team in the next couple of weeks. So Vassilev hopefully is an Inter Miami player, but that Dean Smith firing and the Steven Gerrard appointment are really key in this, not so much of a saga, but in this storyline. Is Indy Vassilev going to be a Miami player, or is Indy Vassilev going to go back to Aston Villa? The coaching change being at this time is really crazy timing, to say the least. But it's a story that I'm definitely looking out for, and I will keep you updated here on the 30-minute pitch. Now, that's all the time we have, unfortunately, today. A ton of U.S. men's national team talk, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Xavi and Gerrard appointed as new managers of Barcelona and Aston Villa. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you check out Dangerous Minds Brewing Company, an outstanding Brewing Company in Pompano Beach, located at the City Center. They're the ones that make this show possible. We're looking a little bit of an insider thing here. We are looking to try and set something up with them again, like we had the watch party with the Miami Heat, with the Five Reasons Sports Network. We're trying to do something again. We will keep you informed. But like I said, even if it's not through Five Reasons, there's always a ton of events going on at Dangerous Minds. Pizzas of the day, food of the day. We have the kids DIY pizza thing coming up on Sunday. There's just a ton to look out for. And they're also playing Premier League early in the mornings if you guys want to stay tuned for that. So go follow them on Twitter at Dangerous Minds Brewing. Go follow them, or on Instagram at Dangerous Minds Brewing. Go follow them on Twitter at Dangerous Minds B, I believe. And go and support them because they are the ones that support us and make this show possible. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you so much to all the veterans out there who fight for our lives and give their service for our freedom. So thank you so much, guys. This has been the 30-minute pitch with Austin Robillard, and we will see you next week.